Hello, Culture Matters podcast. Make sure you're sitting down. If you listen to this show with regularity, you should know our guest. Before I introduce them, here's a quote just for this episode. Most people overestimate what they could do in 1 year and underestimate what they can do in 10 years. Bill Gates. Our guest today is a good friend of the Culture Matters podcast in a small group of people that care about Lord of the Ring analogies for business, which is manifesting itself on the Culture Matters podcast slowly but steadily. They're a leader in their space. They're a avid Coca-Cola drinker,
I was just
which is cool because we're about to have one of the board members of Coke on the podcast actually very soon. They are a brilliant, fun, funny friend and leader of Concourse Land Transfer. Yes, that is CLT. What is Concourse Land Transfer? It is one of the best companies in its space because of the people, because of the resources, and that's my bias for being so close. This is our sixth time together. If you haven't listened to episode 595 with Scott Rutkay, who's our guest today, go listen to that after this and get addicted to the culture. Thanks for coming back, Scott. I just rewatched The Hobbit, all of them, and I'm on to Two Towers, so we have so much to talk about. It's probably why
it's a
I'm
whole different conversation.
yeah, so thanks for coming back.
No, I appreciate you inviting me.
Now, did you have did we I don't recall no on the last I just re-listened to episode 595 because I always like to prepare and I always learn something from re-listening to the episodes. If our listeners haven't listened to that episode, it's great. I don't believe we talked about a word for 2024 or 2025. My word for 2025 is intensity. But if you
Oh,
had a word, what
yeah.
was it? Or if you didn't, what do you think it could have been?
First word popped in my head was action. Which I think sort of it, for a lot of people, 2024 was a time of inaction. A time where, if you let yourself on those cold, dark nights, you sort of try to look into the future and try to see what the business will bring. I think a lot of people had tough times in 2024. I always was taught that the time to act is when people were scared to. Um, and we really did a lot in 2024.
Hmm.
Um, you know, Having less volume gives you the opportunity to fix all the problems that you've had when you do have volume. And cross all the T's, dot all the I's, make sure you're doing everything compliantly, make sure your licenses are updated, all the stuff you hate to do when money's falling from the sky, but you have to do because that's part of running a business.
Hmm.
It isn't, the champagne dinners all the time. Sometimes it's, doing the plumbing. And that is what we did. And that's the action we took. And instead of sort of staying stagnant, we went forward. In addition to that, we put on a new national sales manager. And so she's out there in the world. That's a role that has been underused in this office. So she's been great and just hit the ground running. And we're super excited. She came in October. So that's part of that action plan.
The time to act is when people are scared to. Scott Rutkay.
No, I can't take that quote. I bet I believe the quote is more in line with be bold when others are scared and scared when others are bold. And
Whoever said that isn't, I'm not talking to them. They could rot. Leonardo da
how
Vinci
about Scott
said, good
Rutkay?
artists copy, great artists steal.
So yeah, I mean, I
What
think
do you
I
mean
think
by that? Yeah,
there's a lot
what's
of
your
value. I
take?
think there's a lot of value in that statement. I think that look, I believe that owning a business is collaborative, whether or not you have partners. So I speak to other business owners every day. I have the Scott way, and that's been my way for 50 years. I don't know if that's the right way. I know it's the way that's gotten me where I am. I learn other people's ways every day. I have conversations like with people like you, Jay. This is incredibly beneficial because I don't, nowadays there's less meeting in person. A lot of these are Zooms. It used to be if I'm in an office of 600 people, I collaborate with 300 every day. And then I probably hit every single person in that office every 3 days. And then that's a culture. That's a universe, right? A
You
universe to
kind
live.
of bump almost like the what's that game where you the ball you pull the it's like bumper
Oh, pinball. Pinball? Are you talking about pinball?
pinball,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
like the ball's hitting everything.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Or pachinko. Pachinko, the balls are hitting things on the way down also.
So what's that do for the energy?
So what I think is, I think it makes things more immediate. For example, if I walk up to your desk, I'm like, "Hey Jay, how's everything going?" You're like, "Oh man, things aren't great. Take a look at this for a second." Like he didn't have a problem until I walked up and identified that maybe he needs some help. Maybe he was slogging through it on his own, didn't want to ask for help, didn't. So he's whatever was going on in his head, I just absolutely reset it by just walking up and saying hi. And it just sort of said, "Wow, now that you're here, can I ask you a question?" And I think it's that type of, happenstance, serendipity, right? I walk into a room and a conversation starts. Um, and I think you lose a lot of that outside of the office. So it's very important to have conversations like this with people that you value, so that you just sort of see I know which way the wind is blowing by me. How about by you? And what I've found is, if I'm if I'm nervous about something and everybody is excited about something,
Hmm.
that makes me slow down and think about it. What am I missing, or what are they missing? And it's probably a combination of both, right? It's maybe I'm a little bit more risk adverse than they are. Maybe I know something about what they're going into that they don't know. I have some information that they don't have. Who knows what it is? But the most success that we've ever had in my career in business has been to expand quickly when everybody else is in panic mode and constricting.
Hmm.
And what you're able to do then, if you're able to, and by the way, that's being positioned well in bad times, right? So there's a lot of planning that goes into, getting to be in a good place when other people aren't. So you pick up great people that are unfortunately shaved off by old companies. You pick up new information. You see what's going on. Obviously, you're gaining some market share by virtue of them shrinking. So it's we have had great success being bold when others are scared. But the caveat to that is to be thoughtful, be scared when others are bold, and figure out why you don't feel the same way that they do.
How?
I think you'd learn a lot just by watching and listening, right? So I see how other people run businesses. This is sort of a fantastic example I'm going to give you, but everybody's on social media now, so it is very easy to see the direction of a company. And if you see a particular business unit or business or person melting down, you're like, wow, that's something that I have to be thoughtful about, because I have the capacity to melt down. I don't know if I want anyone to see me do it, right? So, or maybe I do, or maybe I have a message to deliver and I'm not delivering it correctly. Or, you see a lot just by looking. What are other people doing? Again, there are, you know, a lot of Scots out there. All of them are going to tell you they're the smartest title guy there ever was. They're all wrong but me, but they all have great ideas. If you just look, again, from this office, I can't see the whole world. So I don't know how other people are doing things. I know how I'm doing things. So I have to absorb as much industry information as I can to stay ahead of what everybody's doing.
What are the word tracks of some of the really successful partners you because you're when I say partners, I mean your referral partners.
Yeah.
The successful word tracks or yeah, word tracks that you hear like commonly spoken word tracks that are reflecting their philosophical state in this current
Yeah. So I think
market.
I think I don't know about other industries, but I know what happens in ours. during either good times or bad when you see colleagues in person. And the initial statement, "Hey Jay, how's everything going?" "Oh, it's going great." Right? The first answer they give is, "It's going great." And if I wasn't thoughtful about that answer, or I wasn't really thoughtful about the question that I was asking, or I didn't care that I was asking, I was just passing time, I might not get past that.
I hate that question. It's so
Right.
philosophical.
But
I
you know,
never know how to answer it.
I think in the context of business, they know what I think you'd know what I was asking you. Not, hey,
I just want to grab you by the
all
collar and say,
right,
"Do you want to know?"
right.
You don't
And I
want to.
don't, and at that point I would eject. But in the first conversation I'm having, I'm interested really how he's doing, right? So then we get a little deeper. And I think what happens is there's a language, right, a patois of mortgage and title where, people just sort of say same things over and over and over and over and over again, and it just becomes a script. You can tell by my podcasts, by my visits, I talk a lot. I'm not really content with "I'm doing fine." So I have to fill that empty space with a lot of words and hope that they jump in too, or else I'm lost.
So the word track, like, what's the nuance? What are you feeling and seeing?
Yeah, I think that when
Or
you
or is it a lot of surface level BS?
no, so I think when you really get into it, it depends on who you're talking to. There are two personality types that I meet up with, and those are the plus A positive and plus A negative, right? It's how are things going terrible, they're getting worse, regulations are going to crush us. This is what's happening. All facts. They have fact. Their analysis is based on facts. They don't see the world like I see it. They just don't. It's the opposite of how I see the exact same facts that they see, and I look for opportunity in that. If the market's constricting, that's great. That's great for Scott. I get great employees and I get more market share and I can go out and get more business. If regulations are tough for you, maybe I can get ahead of that and I can make myself different relative to you because I'm the most compliant guy on the planet. There's a million ways to sort of improve. Go on. Jordan Peterson.
Rule 4. You just said something.
Okay.
Well, I could tell you the rule. Notice that opportunity lurks where responsibility
Is
has
absent.
been abdicated.
Yeah.
You said, but the reason I'm the light bulb on that, you said you see opportunity, but it lurks when it was elucidated by doctor and various mediums. Lurks, every word matters with him. Lurks connotes danger. Like opportunity lurks.
Yep.
I'm going into
Yep.
a burning fire
Sure.
building. I'm the fireman person. So what thoughts come to notice?
Yeah. So
What we
that
notice is that's based on our aim. We notice we notice things that matter to us. Notice that opportunity lurks. So there's a danger element to it. There's a conflict element. There's a
well, I would, yeah, and I would,
person.
I would, I would add something else. So if you think to yourself a animal that is lurking, I see a cat, right? I see a dark cat. I see a cat pacing, lurking behind you, right? So I do see danger, but but always there waiting. That's also the piece about lurking that I think he's getting at. The reason for using that word is that not only does it connote danger, but it also connotes ever present. If you're looking for it, it's there. Whether you like it or not, whether you're looking for it or not, it is always there. You either see it or you don't. And sure, there's danger. Business is danger. Business is risk. I'm in insurance. Insurance is a risk business. As risk adverse as I am, claims happen, right? Claims happen.
What are
Uh,
your thoughts on the where responsibility has been abdicated. So I had to look up the definition. I actually didn't know what that meant. It's like thrown away or
Right. You give
uh,
up, you give up a right, or you give up something that you have the ability to do, that you were given agency to do. You give up that agency.
so responsibility lurks where I'm sorry, opportunity lurks.
Right.
Notice that opportunity lurks where responsibility has been abdicated. So if we look at it from a macro standpoint, the industry, the competition, what do you think?
Yeah. I mean, what is the job of a leader in a business but to make that business grow and be pushed forward? If I see another leader not doing that, they have abdicated that responsibility. They said, I've given up in whatever they're doing, they've given up to whatever we're talking about, right? Maybe they've given up doing newspaper advertising. And I think that that's important. They don't. I think they're wrong. They've advocated their responsibility in that sector to push their business forward. That vacuum is filled by me. It is my responsibility to fill that vacuum as a leader. Now, by the way, to your point though, how dangerous a thought. Because do I have, am I smart enough to do that? Am I right about that? Hey, Scott, have you heard of the internet?
No.
Newspapers are old news. Why would you jump into newspapers? So there is danger that lurks. You know, he might not have been as dumb as I think he was to abdicate that agency.
Here's something to add into the pot. In Rule 4 in Book 3, Beyond Order, if we're talking about maps, then 12 rules and beyond. In Rule 4, there's an example that's used of this ancient Egyptian myth. Osiris, the king, pharaoh, stops paying attention, and Seth, his evil brother, malevolence, kills him, and he ends up in the underworld. His wife, now this part goes beyond me, procreates with his corpse and has a son, Horus.
Sure.
It's always so weird. I'm sure there's meaning there we can unpack on part 17, but Horus fights Seth,
His uncle.
loses his eye, goes to the underworld to get his Osiris back, integrates with him, and becomes like rejuvenates the culture essentially. But the reason that story, the one piece I'm curious about, because what you just said about we could be wrong, the danger we could be wrong about the type of
Sure.
advertising. But
Sure.
Osiris stopped paying attention to, and then if I think about the notice piece, notice that opportunity. So the pharaoh stops paying attention. He represents culture. In the preface of Maps of Meaning, if the structure of culture is disrupted, chaos returns. He gets killed by Seth.
Yep.
If the structure of culture is disrupted, chaos returns. But Osiris stopped paying attention. And then it's like, notice that opportunity lurks where. So that what you said, I think I wanted to elucidate on is like, this is my thought. I want your thought on. If we're paying attention, we're more likely we have a higher statistical likelihood of being correct on our assumptions. And of course that's compounded with the people that we have around us.
Right. And
So what are
paying
your
attention
thoughts
to
on?
those people.
Yeah,
Right.
it's like a compounding effect of none of us really know what's going to happen. I re-listened to our last episode, 595. It was a great episode. And you're at the end, you're like, what's because I asked, what are you least excited about for the coming year? It's like, I don't know what's going to happen yet. Because none of us do. In
Right.
the grand abyss of the world, the
Right.
universe,
The unknown.
we need each other to put the puzzle pieces together. So
Right.
thoughts?
I think that you touched on sort of everything we talked about in the beginning relative to being in an office versus being outside of an office. as far as touching people, sort of coming together with people, right? So what are we doing when we're hitting people all day long? They're paying attention. I'm paying attention to them individually.
Ooh,
And, as opposed to paying attention to them as a group. And that's a wholly different thing,
how
right?
do we combine? Yeah, what do you think is the synthesis of? Because there's time for group, there's time for one-on-one.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I had a manager very early on in my career who we used to laugh when he said it, but he used to say I manage by walking around. I'm like, well, what do you mean by that? He goes, I don't look at, I look at reports in the morning. That's a solitary thing. But then I walk into the bullpen and I walk around and just say hi. And by just walking around, three things happen. The first thing is that I'm not in my office all day and they think that I'm just in the ivory tower, throwing out commands. Two is I get to know who everybody is,
Good
right?
advice.
Which at his age, he probably, you know, people were coming and going so quickly at that time. He was probably having a hard time keeping up with who his employees were. So that was important. And then three, he can throw in whatever, whatever sort of nugget of wisdom he can throw at you as he walks by. Hey, Jay, how's everything going? I got to be honest with you, Scott, my hat doesn't fit. Well, did you know on the back of them, they have clips. They're invisible, but you see them there in the back. Oh, I didn't know that. Now my hat fits. And then he walks away. And, and you sort of, what happens there is doing that day after day after day after day, you get a sense of the flow of a community of people. Jim's never at his desk at 10. He's always over there. This department's always busy. I stay away from there because they're crazy. Then I go over here because if I get to them by 11, I know that they've already dealt with the 9 to 10 problems. So I can now sort of strategize, or I stay away from them because they're going to have a real question to ask me. And I'm going to let them figure that out and whatever, it's sort of, you get an idea of the flow and look, there's great benefit to that. There's amazing benefit to not having people in an office also for that. I mean, they're, whatever, relaxed, they're whatever whatever side of that argument you're on. I think the benefit of being in person is being able to collaborate in real time. Not, I just got, while we were talking, I received 2 texts and a Teams message. So I didn't look at them, but somewhere, there are 3 people who are looking for me to do something. So 2 things are happening. One is I'm thinking about that, not talking to you, right? Or I'm sort of in a panic about that, and now I give whatever is ahead of me short shrift.
People have to want to go to church. They can't be forced to church.
100%.
So
And
do I want to be at a church where I don't like the music, the pastor's prosaic, or overly demanding of me existentially,
yeah,
behaviorally, but I have to want to go. We have
and I
this
don't
option
think
in our current culture where we don't have the opportunity as a consequence of technological advancement. Uh, you're great with words. How could I finish this thought? Technology has given us the opportunity to not be inherently forced, not by people, but by structures of
so.
society. Like there was no form medium of communication other than being physically
Exactly.
together. Now that those structures have broken down, and as a consequence of the technological advancement, we can do this without being in person.
Exactly.
So for me to so with that agency, there's got to be a damn good reason for me to physically travel.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
yeah, and so what can companies do to preempt that inspiration?
So I think that the one thing that's changed
What can we do?
philosophically about hires is when I hired my national sales manager, she didn't have to be in New Jersey. She could be in Chicago, which is where she lives. Because to your point, I can talk to her every day, just like we're talking now. She goes out into the world, so she doesn't need to be around me. So that makes sense to me. 35 years ago, I would never hire a national sales manager, perhaps in Chicago, because she'd have to come to the office. She'd have to, whatever. I mean, you have to, whatever you have to do.
It
So,
would be harder to build trust.
exactly. So, if I wanted to have a face to face conversation with you in the past, I would have to fly to where you were. That's incredibly expensive. But the question is, at what point is the human relationship worth the spend? Or what dollar amount is that worth? Because there is incredible benefit to me doing this with you in person, or rather than doing it like this. You do lose a little
I
bit of
think
it.
it's a both and, but that maybe so there's the Pareto distribution comes into play, the 80/20.
Yep, yep.
If it's 80% virtual, it's 20% or less physical. Uh, However, then there becomes another conversation I love your thoughts on. Quality of communication.
Well, if
Quality of communication. There were 21 people that participated in our New Year's Eve Jubilee. It's an every year a New Year's Eve from early in the morning till late at night. The Culture Matters podcast guests gather.
oh wow,
It started last year. I interviewed 12 people back to back.
yeah,
And in the spirit of cultural evolution, my being less of a dick and better person, invited people to stay. And, you know, multiple people were invited, like on the same one. And I'm trying to challenge myself to get even sharper and faster and better. So I started earlier and did it later.
yeah,
And it was 4 a.m. to 9:38 p.m. 21
wow,
participants. It
wow.
was a New Year's Eve Jubilee and we talked about the year, last year, the future. You could imagine how that craziness could manifest itself. But
Sure.
this was an online gathering.
So, um, I think that could be incredibly, incredibly beneficial, right? How are you going to get those people all together easily today in this world? Very difficult to do other than virtually, right?
Amen.
I would argue, however, if you were able to do it, right? Money wasn't an object, time wasn't an object. You were able to get those 21
It would
people
be a thousand times cooler.
1,000 times cool. And that's all I'm saying. So
But the
there is
question I
benefit.
want to pose to you and
Yeah.
the audience to think about is, why did they show up? I believe they showed up because
Oh,
I've
yeah.
I've listened, I built real relationships with everybody really virtually.
There's no, listen,
Only a couple of them we physically will go because we work together. But like, and that's a big thing, right? We want to physically spend time because we work together. That is key component. But why did they show up? Because the communication matters.
I mean, look, you used, that's sort of my style.
And you'll be on next year. Don't worry. Like
No,
this
no, I'm
was
not worried
very
about that.
like
I already wrote down, do not be around for that.
I got hate.
So,
No, I didn't get hate. I'm being teased. People were like, "What happened?" I was like, "No, this was not
oh,
planned
it's
because I'm
FOMO.
molting."
It's FOMO. And
It
now
was
I'm going to be on
originally
one,
supposed to be just like,
one after another.
yeah, and then I'm like, "No, that's not culture."
So you just hit on it. So what I was going to get to was, you asked me why they all came on the call. Usually it's my style to use a lot of words to get to an answer. The answer is relationship, right? And that falls under culture. And to distill it even further, they're on that call because of you. And that's the relationship that you have with that group of people. I can certainly understand why I was on it. Now that I'm thinking about how tight these people must have been to you to be allowed to be on the same call together.
I mean, I try to mix some enemies in there.
Fair enough. Always good. You got to stay
But
on your toes.
it's definitely yeah, it's an emotional thing. And we dedicated it to John Schwartz, who we lost in September. We had been working with for many years, and that was a big wake up call for me, Scott, was that no one knows who he is because I never connected them.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So no, that won't happen again, my friend. And so it's interesting how, bad things have to happen for good behaviors to manifest? Or am I just that entitled?
I, I, I
Like a
don't
little
think,
bit of that,
I don't
but
think, I would ask you to sort of walk back bad things. I think any adversity, not bad, right? That's a neutral, having to get past something is neutral, right? Doesn't have to be bad, but every time you do that thing, get around that thing, that makes you a better person, makes you better at it. So not bad. I think, I don't know, just sort of in context with what you're talking about, right? That's not a bad thing that happened. That's a thing that happened. That's sad, right? And I'm going through something very similar. I just sort of hit me yesterday. Something happened. My wife's friend's husband committed suicide.
ah,
You think about
started.
that. I appreciate that. Thank you. And you think about that, and it's not a, that's not a bad, like nothing bad happened in my life, right? You know what I mean? Like it's not, it's just, you think about sort of the struggle of that and what that means and what, must be happening in his head. And it makes you sort of thoughtful. If you're thoughtful about it, I think it makes me better because I'm thoughtful. I'm like, wow, what an amazing life I have. And I would not,
Gratitude.
right, exactly. And amazing people around me. Look, when you say that on your podcast a sixth time, we laugh about it. But think about that though. There are hundreds of thousands of people you could have on with regularity. And we've created a relationship where we want to have a conversation every, sounds like 185 episodes. So whatever that equals, that's when I get another
Well,
conversation.
I know that if the guy I meet at Walmart says no, I got Scott Rutkay on.
100%. I'm here for you. I'm here for you. I
What
can talk for
what
45 minutes.
what do you think? What do you think the opportunity is? Seriously, in
Yeah.
2025, we're this is the first month is already over. It's
Yeah.
I don't know if I've accomplished
It's
anything.
hard to believe, to be
I
honest.
Yeah, I'm trying to think like, did I actually succeed at any things that I thought? But things seem to be great, but they probably seem to be great before the Titanic realized it already hit the iceberg. So I'm like, all right. Y- uh,
But you're
Anyway,
dark.
I'm
I mean,
asking a question,
you went dark in this podcast.
dude.
Just so
It's
you know,
crazy.
this
Well,
podcast is dark. I'm not gonna, add into it, but you've gone dark in this
no, this
podcast.
is good feedback because really, Scott, I am dark. That's the thing. I'm just being more
I
open
love it.
on the show, but
I love it.
generally, I am highly, highly impolite and neurotic.
So you
And so,
asked me what am I looking for? What do I see for 2025? Well, so let's see. The doomsday clock just ticked up another second yesterday. Um, Look, it goes back to exactly what we're talking about. It looks back to action, right? It looks back to opportunities. And I know that's a platitude that people say, what are your words? What are your, what do you think you're going to be? I'm not telling you that because I think it's something you want to hear.
no,
When it is going to be tough. Look, 2025, it does not look like there's going to be a lot of relief in my industry. On my side, you know, in my purview. It's not around the corner. It might be down the street, but it's not around the corner. So, it's I could do one of two things. I could throw on, the brutalist, which I have to my right if I'd like to turn it on, or I could try to get more business. I could try to figure out what's going wrong. I could find out my what the people in my industry are doing better than me. I'd love to hear that.
so action.
Action.
That's Brad's word. Mine's intensity. Eddie's hyper focus. Reagan Weiss was on the other day, nonstop.
Nonstop.
Consistency was Rob Wishnick. I'm just like trying to tally
Would you
everybody's word.
would you consider all those people? I don't know all the names. Would you consider all those people successful people in their field?
I try to invite people that were really on their last leg.
So think
Like,
about
like,
all of the words
like,
that they're using. Now I know I've been on six times. So
God,
keep on
and
going. I keep on thinking he's failing. He keeps on coming back.
truly blessed. And wait, what is success?
No, no, no. Just no,
According
not
to
monetary. I mean success. Would you consider those to be successful people in their field? If the answer is yes, think about consider.
statistically, yeah.
Yeah. we
based on statistics. I try to use statistics because Peterson says don't compare yourself to someone. I'm sorry, compare yourself to who you were yesterday, not to who someone else is today. Rule 4 and 12 rules, I believe that is. Well, I compare myself to other people every day.
sure.
Like,
That's how
and
you,
there's also some, but I not to lose sight of that lesson. There's so much to that. Avoid envy and some of the lower. But I am looking at the competition. I am looking at the statistics. So like if you're asking me, are they successful in their given domain? Absolutely. Those names that I just listed are all statistically in the upper echelon of their given domain.
so the broad point that I was making was that think about we
As
don't know.
people, I would say yes too, because the characters that I listed, like I know, not everyone has much depth.
I
Because
apologize. I feel like I forced you to.
you did, and
I
I'm
feel
just
like I forced you
excited
to
about
sort
the.
of apologize. That's not what I was getting at.
No,
What I
I'm
was
just
getting at is
excited about the thought. Yeah.
we are eight strangers who you asked, "What are you excited about?" and we all used the same type of word. Success. That so. I apologize. I should have probably spit that out first. So I these are strangers who are all interested in sort of the same thing, and these are successful people. Maybe if you feel you're watching this podcast that you're looking for what 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 should my feeling be going into 2025, I'll look to see what leaders what they think is 2025. And by the way, I didn't hear shitty, resting on my laurels, whatever words equal
No, I'm thinking
fire.
Travis Stoke was urgency. Man,
Right.
I this conversation led me to realize I got everybody's word. I need to like have that on my desk, and if it comes up, it could be a really impactful dialogue
The
for.
only reason why I'm thinking, I think that, it might be interesting to find out. And obviously, with some forethought, I could come up with a better word, right? So given enough time and really have like,
Oh yeah, you definitely have the. If we had a pecking order of the words, yours is
yeah,
down there at the
yeah,
bottom.
yeah. Yeah, panic, panic.
No,
What's
I
my
love
word
that.
for
I
2025?
love the action.
Panic.
What'd you say?
What's the word for 2025? Panic.
Oh my God. Or self. Actually, wait. I have. Don't stop because I like to write letters. Here was one from yesterday. Limitless. Jamie, Rob, consistency. Um, I didn't put Tony's down.
I got news for you. Out of all the words I've heard so far,
Jen used
consistency is
leverage.
probably my favorite.
Which one?
Consistency is probably my favorite.
Why
Out
is
of all
that?
the words I've heard so far,
Why?
because
Why?
consistency for a guy, if a guy think if he thinks like me, and I feel like I'm elite in my field.
Yeah, I'll introduce you. You would love him. He's actually in the mortgage business, and I've
If
known him
I'm
for
good at
almost
what
10
I
years.
do, if I'm good at what I do, why would I want to be inconsistent? I'm going to keep on being good at what I do. That is a really it's an right because think about the other words, right? The other words are action, for go, fast, boop, boop, boop. No, dude, I'm great.
Great. That's a
I'm
great, yeah.
excellent at what I do, and I'm going to keep that level of intensity. Come find me. I'm up here.
See that I love this conversation, and so the listeners understand that just led me to realize these are two people I've known a long time that should have known each other a long time ago. So that's my next action. We follow up here, and you're close geographically as well. Very successful guys. If you're listening to this podcast, I would hey Scott, how can people connect with you like most quickly to do business and to collaborate in the real estate business?
Yeah, come
Fastest way to get.
find me on LinkedIn, find me on Instagram, find me at online, concourseLT.com.
Please share this with a friend that needs some action, consistency, and exciting. Maybe can feel better about themselves after listening to this.
Very good.
Leave us a review on the Culture Matters podcast. We will see you very soon. We'll see you next time.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Thank you.